hope you are doing well today. Welcome to the first webinar of 2020. I can't believe I can even say that. We're delighted that you're here. My wife Sarada has joined me, so this is by far my better half, as well as Paul Cook, who's joined us, and then we have the strangers as well, who will introduce themselves shortly. There are featured guests, and they're going to do a fantastic job with us this evening. Before we dive into the content of tonight's webinar, I just want to say thank you for joining us. Happy that you're here. If you are watching with a group of people, if you are logged on individually, we have record of that, and so we can keep up with attendance that way. If you are watching with a group of people, you can either write in the chat that you have a group of people and who all's there, or you can email stephanie@destinyleaders.com. Also, a couple of things about the semester starting. We have made a transition in how DLI is structured as far as the calendar goes. So everyone in year one are taking the same three classes: servant leadership, Christian foundations, New Testament survey, and DLI internship. So if you are either this is your very first semester DLI, or you're in your second semester DLI, you're taking those courses. Similarly, everyone in the second year is taking courses the same one. So it just kind of helps out with keeping you in bigger groups. You will have an advisor assigned to your cohort group soon. So what that means is that I've broken each of you up into smaller groups of 12 to 15, and each group will have someone who's already been through DLI log in and kind of guide you through the whole 2-year process. And they will be introducing themselves to you a little bit later. But this will really help you to have someone who can hold you accountable and also answer any questions that you might have and bring you through it. And the goal is that the same 12 to 15 students that you start DLI with or start this semester with, they'll all graduate with you at the end of in 2 years or so, which is fantastic. The only housekeeping note I would make would be that be sure to check your email. We've been building courses and getting things ready this semester. There have been some little things that have came up when we emailed you and told you about them, and then we're still getting a lot of emails back asking about those same issues. So it'd be really helpful for you just to check any correspondence from us. And if you have a question, make sure that we haven't already communicated the answer to you, because as we're trying to address issues, our team gets a little overloaded if we're trying to respond to a lot of emails that we've already addressed the problem. So thank you for that. Thank you for your patience as we've been trying to build courses and get things ready. We faced a few technical glitches that have slowed things down. So anyways, thank you so much for being patient. If this is your first year of DLI, you're in servant leadership. If it's in your second year of DLI, you're in Intro to Christian Ministry. The other courses and all that will be built out in plenty of time, hopefully by the end of the week. But right now, as long as you can get to servant leadership, Intro to Christian Ministry, and can attend this webinar, you are on top of the game and doing an awesome job. All right, sounds good. And if you have any particular questions about curriculum, DLI in general, shoot that in an email to stephanie@destinyleaders.com because we want to make sure we're giving plenty of time to our host tonight and give some incredible content to share with us. Paul, who is on the webinar with us, Paul Cook, at the beginning of, I guess it's almost been a year and a half ago, we've looked at our webinars and the content that we were delivering through DLI, and we really wanted to restructure it to help you in practical ways to become a better leader. Your curriculum, your workbooks, your textbooks, the videos, the lectures, the audio, that's helping you learn the Bible, helping you learn leadership principles, helping you learn theological ideas. So we really want to take this internship portion of the course and this time in a webinar to help you, like, how do I actually become a more helpful person at my local church serving? Because we do believe that the local church is the hope of the world, and that we believe in the church, that this is a time where it's easy to bash the church and criticize the church and talk bad about the church. But we believe that we love the church and we're going to defend the church and stand up for the church. So how do you actually serve the church in a way that adds value to your church body and also adds value to the leadership of your church? And so every semester we've talked to you about kind of different themes. Well, the theme of this entire semester is how to serve and love the leader of your organization, whether that's your senior pastor or those of you who attend campuses and your closest relationship is your campus pastor, or maybe you work for a nonprofit, so it's that administrative director of some sorts. But how do you add value and support the leader of your organization? Because everything rises and falls on leadership. And so if the organization is going to prosper, then it's necessary for that leader to prosper. That if the leader is not healthy and thriving and strong, the organization probably will not be healthy, thriving, and strong. So it's really important for the leader to be the best that he can be, and for him or her to be the best that they can be. It's important for the rest of us to give them the requisite support that they need in order to thrive and prosper. So that's a bird's eye view of what we're going to talk about tonight and for the rest of the semester. But before we dive into much, I want to briefly make sure you're already acquainted with everyone that's here tonight helping contribute to this conversation. Paul, if they've not seen, I think they've probably seen your face a time or two, unless this is their first semester. Why don't you give us a little bit of an introduction to who you are, what you do, why you're so awesome, and just for bonus, why you think I'm so awesome. Go.
There you go. That's good. Well, so I'm just thrilled to be here, and why I'm here is because I have just this insatiable passion to want to help leaders in transition. So like when young people are coming out of high school and they kind of trying to find their way, young adults, ministers, anybody that's in transition, it seems like God puts them on my radar, and I have this passion to help. And a part of that is a passion to teach. So teach the word, and then also teach practical principles. My dad was a great guy, but he wasn't very coachy. He was just kind of quiet and aloof a little bit. And so when you followed him around, you could learn how to lead, but he didn't tell you much. And I determined that I always was hungry for that, and I determined I wanted to be that guy when it came to sharing things. So I'm passionate about DLI. I asked to be involved. I inserted my foot in the door and said, let me help because it matters to me. And so appreciate Landon and appreciate his willingness, and along with Phil Brassfield, to allow me to be a part of this. I pastor a church in Plano, Texas, Life Central Church. It's the fourth church I've pastored. I've been a part of many settings. I've been married for 36 years and in ministry about that whole time. So got a couple things. I've been at least know how to be a punching bag, so I can tell you about that. But anyway, yeah, great to be here. Passionate about tonight's content as well.
Well, thank you, Paul. And for those of you who are students, just something for you to know is that Pastor Paul has really developed most of the content. So most of the things you hear me say on the webinars are not things that I've created or produced. It's all Paul. So if there's anything particularly brilliant, I probably ad-libbed that.
Maybe.
Anything that you weren't too crazy about, it was definitely Pastor Paul. And I left it in against my better judgment. No, in all seriousness, Pastor Paul has been such a help to me and to DLI, and has transformed the webinars and this part of our curriculum. So we're very, very grateful for that. All right. Well, let's turn it over to the Stranges. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your church, where you're from, and help us out here.
Well, I'm Russ Strange, and
I'm Tammy Strange.
Tammy, and we are from Jackson, Ohio, just about 75 miles southeast of Columbus, Ohio. And we pastor Elevate Ministries. We've been here 16 years. We've had several transitions, and we started out the Lighthouse, changed the name. I was telling the panelists before we got started about a flood we had at the church, kind of transitioned us. God just kind of pushed us in a direction. It's been a really good thing. We've got 2 sons. My oldest is 26. He's married. We've got a brand new grandbaby. He'll be a year this month, and I've got a senior in high school. So pray for us. Yes. And my daughter-in-law is a a nurse, and my oldest son, he's a cop, and my youngest might be heading up the prison ministry. We're not sure yet. Just trying to pray that God helps Carson. And and we've been married 30 years in May, and we've been assistant pastor, we've been youth pastor, we evangelized for 8 years, and now we've been pastor in the same church for 16 years. It's just been a real good, and we are honored to be here tonight. Thank you for the invitation to join you, and we're just excited about what God's doing.
Awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the church there. So you were telling me before, kind of just a lot of success that you guys have seen over the last couple of years. Give me a little snapshot of what that has looked like for you, where the church was when you started and kind of where you are now.
When we came here, it was a really tough situation. They just built a building. The church had just kind of scattered, and we just felt like God. I just felt like God was opening up the door. And when we got elected, after you get elected, all the good stuff starts to come out, and but we were started with 28 voting members, about 48 people, $690,000 in debt. And the first Sunday, the secretary came to me and said, "We have $7,000 bills due tomorrow, and we got $10 in the bank." And I patted her on the shoulder and I said, "God's got this," and He has for 16 years. He's never failed us. And we started growing, started reaching our community, grew a little bit, and how that goes, and you grow a little bit. And then we were here 9 months, and we had a man who was fell. This is part of it. We just here 9 months, he fell off a ladder and passed away right in the middle of the sanctuary, falling from the ladder. And we've only been here 9 months, and so then you're thinking, God, should I be here? What's going on? What's happening? You get through that, and you continue to do what God's called you to do. And then in 2015, we have a flood the sanctuary with 58,000 gallons of water, and totally remodeled the sanctuary. In that moment, we were pretty devastated. We'd given 11 years and just didn't know what was going to happen. So we started having gym in our service in our gym and gymnasium, and we outgrew our gymnasium before we opened up our new sanctuary. And so
wow,
it's just been nothing but, we had great things happen, lots of growth. The last 3 years, we've had to have 2 services on Easter because we can't fit everybody in one. We have 500 seats in our sanctuary, but can't fit everybody in one service. And it's kind of unheard of down here in Southeast Ohio, our town runs about 11,000 people, and we have 700 or more for Easter. So
wow.
It's not been easy. A lot of nights staring at the ceiling, holding your chest, hoping it all works out. But I believe when you feel a call of God, that God works it out, and He has certainly for us. It's been amazing.
Right. Wonderful. And one reason why we're honored for several reasons to have you on this evening, but for that lifetime of commitment and the dedication, and you're in Jackson, Ohio, which is a small spot on the map just southeast of Columbus. But
Right.
There are heroes of the faith, and I would consider you guys in this category, who are grinding it out in towns that no one else has ever heard of, away from the spotlight, but literally changing the lives of so many people and transforming communities. And sometimes, your story and what God's done through you, it doesn't always get a chance to be heard. So I'm honored just to get to know you guys and to hear what you have to say tonight, because what you've done in probably what's not the easiest context. I'm in Houston, Texas, where there's, the size of your town. Like I had that in my actual neighborhood. There's probably 11,000 people here.
Right.
And so it's just amazing what God's done through your ministry. And so thank you. I mean, thank you for being faithful. Thank you for, not that you need my acceptance, but just as a younger leader, to look up at the example of someone who's went somewhere, planted somewhere, and stayed faithful, and watch God do amazing things is such inspiration to us. So we appreciate that.
I'd like to add one thing to that. And, you know, I watched Russ grind it out. And so for people who are in it and working hard, I watched him grind it out for 10 years. And the part of that story is that didn't see the kind of successes he wanted in the first 8-10 years. You know, it was just a lot of just doing the same thing over and over and just kind of beating your head against the wall. And then all of a sudden, you know, just things happen. And these are faithful people. So I'll just throw my little 2 cents in on their credibility and appreciate their grinding it out. And by the way, my wife is going to join me now. Julie just stepped in the room, so I'm going to have her sit down. She just got off work at our child care center, so she's here to join me. So things are going to look up just a little nicer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, hey.
To the party. Hi.
All right. Well,
You know, on that, when you talked about a little bit about commitment, I don't want to step out of bounds here. If I am, just stop me. But I think people are attracted to commitment, and I've always been huge on a calling. I didn't pastor till I was 36 years old, and because I wanted it to be a calling, you know, I didn't want it to be another step. I did this, and then I youth pastored, and then I pastored, and that's the stair step to success. And I just thought, even in the worst of times, with God still calling you to that ministry, if you'll commit to it, you know, it's. I've got a family in my church that's got 800-acre apple orchard, and they don't cut down the apple trees in the middle of the winter because they're not producing apples. You commit to it even when it doesn't look good, because if you just do the right things and stay the course, know your calling, and know where God's put you, you know that the fruit's going to come.
wow.
And so, and people are attracted to commitment. I think, you know, I have a lot of denominational people in our city, and they'll say, now, how long are you allowed to stay at your church? And so I'm staying here forever. You know, they don't get that, because a lot of pastors move every 3 to 5 years. And it's, you know, it's unheard of in this area. You know, with all the other churches, they move their pastors in and out, and, you know, I'm camped out forever. You know, but it's made an impact because people know that, and people get I think they're comfortable with that, knowing you're going to be there.
Right. Wonderful. Well, great. Well, hey, let's dive into the topic at hand tonight, and I believe you'll really help it. You both, you know, Paul and Julie and Russ and Tammy can help us a lot here. Let me just read real quickly from 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 9. So we do like to read from the Bible on occasion here at Destiny. I mean, this is also, we're out of January whenever most of you are reading the Bible every day. So just in case you already fell off your plan, haven't read it, we're going to go ahead and dive in, so you can check this off your little to-do list. But Paul is writing to Timothy here, and he says this: do your best to come to me quickly, for Demas, because he loved this world, has deserted me and gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has gone to Galatia, and Titus to Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you, because he is helpful to me in my ministry. And I sent Tychicus to Ephesus. When you come, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas, and my scrolls, especially the parchments. Alexander the metalworker did me a great deal of harm. The Lord will repay him for what he has done. You two should be on your guard against him, because he strongly opposed my message. At my first offense, no one came to support me, but everyone deserted me. May it not be held against them. But the Lord stood at my side and gave me strength, so that through the message so that through me the message might be fully proclaimed, and all the Gentiles might hear it. And I was delivered from the lion's mouth. The Lord will rescue me from every evil attack, and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom. To him be glory forever and ever. Amen. So what we see here is the Apostle Paul, who is at the end of his life, and he is feeling abandoned by everyone. I mean, he says Demas left me because he loved the present world. Crescens has left me. Tychicus, I've already sent Tychicus away. I left Carpus at Troas. Alexander is someone who left me under a great deal of harm, and he's feeling alone and abandoned. And this is a reality of leadership, and not to be a poor, pitiful me, because I think we would all agree that we are privileged and blessed to do what God has called us to do. And we never want to be ungrateful. Oh God, why did you choose me? We're grateful to get to do what we get to do, that other people don't always have the opportunities to get to do this, and to be, if you're paid to do this, what a privilege, what an honor to do this for a living. But there are difficult seasons in leadership. There are difficult times where you feel like people have left you and abandoned you. And over all the years at Elevate, and over all the years of ministry at Life Central, and the years before that with the Cooks, you could say that you could look back on seasons where it seemed like everyone was leaving, where people that you thought that you could count on, that you could trust, that they would be there with you through the whole journey. They were your ride or die, and then they didn't either ride or die. They just left. So, like, what do we do in those seasons? And so it's on one hand kind of comforting that even the Apostle Paul can go, like, yeah, I feel this. I'm at the end of my life, and everyone has left me. So that frames the conversation for this evening, is what, how as secondary leaders do we support the leaders that are above us or that we're serving. I get to play a very unique role. Not only do I lead DLI and oversee this whole thing, I oversee all this, but this is still under the direction and the vision of Dr. Phil Brassfield. So pretty much everything that happens here is my responsibility, yet I'm carrying out the vision of someone else. And similarly, I'm a pastor in Houston, and I oversee a campus, and pretty much everything that happens at the campus will come back to me at some level. Yet I'm serving the vision of my senior pastors, Pastor Brett and Pastor Scott Jones. So I have a lot of bosses. I have a lot of people that I need to support. And I also understand I also understand the support that my family needs, because we are leading DLI, we are leading a church, we are leading things. So I feel like this is a really interesting conversation, because I both want to know how I can do a better job of supporting my leaders. And I also know that if there are other people who would step up and give us some support, it could be a great relief in our lives, in our ministry. So very helpful. Today I was actually at a church conference where they had one room for lead pastors and one room for second chair leaders. And I just got a chair and sat right in the middle, because I need to hear both. I need to know what it's like to support my pastor, support the people who are leading these things, that are doing things that add so much value. And then I also want to know, like, how do I grow a healthy culture and a team of honor and respect that can lighten the load for us sometimes as well. So I'm just saying all that to say I'm super excited about this conversation. So let's look at some details here. We're going to look at 4 different things that leaders, second chair leaders or secondary leaders, or leaders who are not the senior pastor. If you are the senior pastor and you're watching this or listening to it, think about the person that you're serving under. I think every pastor needs a pastor, and that's a different conversation for later. But we're all serving someone, serving a vision bigger than ourselves. But I see 4 ways in this passage where a secondary leader, a leader of a serve team, a leader, a volunteer, a staff member, can really support the leader of the organization, their pastor. First of all, just to understand the impact of exits, just to understand that whenever someone leaves the ministry, the strain that puts on the senior leader. Whether we want to admit it or not, every exit is personal. So whenever someone comes to you and says, I'm leaving your church, I'm leaving, even if they say it's good, or that, obviously they've always heard directly from God, right? Like, they have this straight line to God that I don't really have access to it, but God tells them that he just wants them to go somewhere else. And you're like, okay, well, he just told you to come here like last year. So next time you talk to him, can you just tell him to make up his mind?
Right.
Please. I mean, like, but still, there's this, it feels personal to us. And in this letter, we see all kinds of different reasons that people left Paul. Sometimes it was ugly, like, Demetri or Demas. He what we would have said, he backslid. He fell from grace. He had a moral failure that took him away from the ministry. And I'm sure we have stories of people that we've loved, that we brought into leadership, we brought into ministry, and through a moral failure, they've left. There's other people like Alexander, who Paul gave him trust and he hurt him and he left vindictively. Then there are the Tychicus's, where they're people that Paul sent away, and it was a good transition, but it was still a transition. So let's talk for just a moment about how to handle these exits. How can the second chair, the support staff, the second level of leaders watching this webinar tonight, how can they support the pastor and the family in seasons of exit?
So if I was going to say something first, I'll say that, because you're a leader and God gives you grace, or at least you need to fake your way like you're gracious. When somebody tells you that they're leaving for whatever reason, your mind is spinning and you're saying, is that the real reason, or is there some story that's not being told behind the story?
Right.
Some people aren't leaving maliciously. They may be just leaving for whatever reasons, but your wheels are spinning and it feels like a vote of no confidence, right? If something was happening here that could hold you, you wouldn't be making this choice. And somehow then the leader feels like they own the failure, right? So every exit, good, bad, malicious, people that, give you warning and treat you with respect, all of it still feels like a failure for the leader. And you have to talk yourself up from that. So I think for people that are following leaders, and those of you that are on the call here today, you have to know that a leader may show a lot of grace. People leave maliciously, they leave in right ways, whatever their exits are. You'll see your leader hold their head up. And you think, well, it didn't affect them. That's not true.
Right.
Every one of them impacted them and made them second guess and hurt them. It all is very, very painful, and you have to find a whole nother measure of grace to make it through. So I want that to be out there, because I want you to know how leaders feel, how they really feel, if they could tell you.
Yeah. Very much so. No matter what level they exit, and then you got to try to figure out. The first thing that comes through your mind is what really happened, and the second thing for me usually is, now I got to deal with the ripple effect. Because if they're a high-profile leader, then then it ripples through, like what happened. Interesting thing about this text here to me is Paul somehow convinced Luke to stay, and Luke was a doctor. It's always nice to have a healer on staff, isn't it?
Right.
Somebody that knows how to heal when you're hurting.
Right.
And I think one of the things about me is you got to figure out how to not become offended. Hurt and being offended is two different things. I think the old saying says, hurt people, but I want to change that up a little bit tonight and say, most of the time, hurting people will find somebody to heal them. Offended people find somebody to hurt.
Wow.
And so I got to juggle whether I'm going to get hurt or I'm going to get offended, because if I'm going to get hurt, I'm going to have a Luke on the team that's going to doctor me back to and support me and lift me up.
That's excellent.
And not get offended, because if I get offended, then I'm going to hurt people in the path. And
Yep.
so that's a
Excellent.
that's a
Well said.
a hard thing to do sometimes.
Well said. Well said.
Yes. And so for the leaders that are watching this, I think some words of wisdom that we could give them would be, and I love that, to be the Luke or the Mark that's bringing healing whenever other people are leaving. And I had that in my notes a little bit later, but I'm glad you brought it up now. But I would say first, just to be so careful not to get caught up in the drama, because usually whenever people exit, if there's normally some drama, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. If someone has been an instrumental part of your church or part of your ministry, when they leave, people start getting into well, why did they really leave? What happened? Well, here's what I heard. Well, here's what I think. Oh no, this whole place is going to fall apart without them here. And so for people, for secondary leaders to just not buy in to the drama and be a source of strength rather than just one more person that the pastor has to worry about. Like, well, how is this going to impact them?
Yeah. Well, and that's one of our themes this year with our leaders that we've been, that I've been telling. Of course, I guess your meetings are different at 52 than they are at 32. You just got a little bit more behind you and less in front of you. So I've been telling our leaders that there's fiercely loyal. I need you to be fiercely loyal. If you're going to be on this team this year, be fiercely loyal and be committed to what we're doing and to the vision. And because I'm getting older and don't have time to keep going back and rebuild. Let's just be fiercely loyal. So those two words, if you ask anybody on our leadership team right now, they'd tell you exactly what I've been telling them. But not that I want them to, push me up or prop me up off, but I just need you to be fiercely loyal. When you hear stuff, things are going around, somebody does exit, even for the right reasons, you still hear things, shut it down and be fiercely loyal to elevate. And if you'll do that, God will do great things, not only in you personally in your personal walk with God, but in our corporate setting.
Right. Of course, we could go back to Saul and David there. So whenever Saul was doing the bad things that he was doing, David's loyalty said more about David's character than it did about Saul's character. And so disloyalty or I guess let's say it positively, loyalty has less to do with the faith that you have in the leader and more about your own character. Like, this is where God's planted me, and this is just the kind of person that I am. So if I don't understand it, I'm going to assume that I'm wrong because God has put me in this house. He's planted me here, and I'm going to assume the best out of my leader. And so I love the idea of being fiercely loyal. And a very practical way to do that is whenever someone exits and it leaves a hole, not only are you dealing with the personal hurt, the personal hurt of, oh no, what am I going, they're rejecting me, they're hurting me, this is a repudiation of my leadership, but there's also like, oh man, there's a lot of stuff that they did that now no one's doing. So a very practical way to help your leader during a time of transition is to come in and say, look, I know so-and-so was doing this, and there's a hole there, and I'm trusting that you know what it's like, that you're going to fill that hole, but until it's filled, how can I help? Like, can I be the one who does that task or responsibility for a few weeks until you get it in place? It's a very practical way, because the pastor's often dealing with the emotional turmoil of the departure as well as the just practical, man, we got stuff to do that's not getting done.
Yeah. I'm talking too much. I often have people fill in those gaps that they might not be particularly gifted in that. But I think that God will give them the grace and the gifting if they'll step in and have faith to fill in the gap, to hold the leader's hands up. And I've often seen people say, I don't know that I'm real good at that, but I'll step in and help there. And then I watch God gift them to do that and give them the grace to do that job that needs to be filled for the time. And then the part is, you don't want to you don't want to overkeep them in that position, because you could frustrate them too, and then you got two problems. So
Yeah.
but I've often watched people step to the plate, maybe, whatever, for whatever it is, nursery, music, if this is not my deal, I don't, but I know you need help. And then I watch God gift them. Sometimes people don't even know that's their gifting until they've been exposed to the need. And sometimes they'll fit right in and didn't even know they were going to fit there. So, I think God can gift people for the moment and for the time that's needed to keep the ministry moving.
Right. Right.
I think it's important to accept those people too, not to expect that they're going to be just exactly like that other person,
Right.
So and so as a secondary leader, if somebody else is stepping in, be careful that you don't compare them to the person maybe that left that position. Don't constantly cause the pastor or the leaders above you to question because you're comparing them to who was there before. So be just be satisfied and appreciate. A lot of times we say we don't appreciate enough what we have. We don't appreciate enough the hard work that people do. We don't celebrate it enough. We don't Paul and I can tend to be workaholics and real hard on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important that we don't just compare them to other people. And as a secondary leader, don't come into the meeting and say, well, the previous one did it like this. Previous leader did this, and so-and-so's not doing that. Yeah. They did, well, maybe they can't do it that way. That's not their understanding. That's not the way that they can do it or get it done. So just enable that person instead of criticizing them.
Yeah, so good, because during times of transition and exits, it's like the senior leader already has so much pressure on trying to fill that slot, and then if you're adding to it, going, oh man, what are we gonna do about this? What are we? Well, fix the problem, or
and if you're the one that's wanting to come along and help that pastor, right? Don't come to him and say, "Hey, I'll take that office, forever," because that's going to make him nervous. So you're talking about the way to approach the leader, right? I know you lost some help. I would love to step in. Just tell me what you need me to do, and I want to try to make that better. Where can I just fill in anywhere? Just give me a slot. I don't care if I'm carrying trash or whatever it is. Don't make it like you're trying to step up so much as you're trying to you just know it hurt the leader and you want to help bear the load. So
don't scare me anymore.
Yeah, that's right. I think it should give us pause when we leave anything. This goes outside of the church too. When you leave anything, you should leave well. There have been times in my life when I didn't leave well. And I always regret those scenes. I replay those tapes. I want to leave well. Be a person who's sent and not one who just exits. So if you're out there as a student and you're a part of something, be somebody who's sent and somebody who's validated by the leaders that are around you as you're sent. Not just making up things in your own mind and take off, because you're just adding to the pain and adding to the inefficiency of where you are. So, I think all of this should kind of give us pause when we have that sense, maybe I should leave,
Right.
And I think that's a key word too, Paul, is sent, sent. I know you may not remember this, but 100 years ago, when you and I were working together, we were, I don't know if we were riding in the car and you said and I didn't understand it. I thought, I loved it there. I was comfortable, loved being a part. And you said, you're going to outgrow this ministry at some point. And I was like, no, I don't want to outgrow what I'm doing, but you're going to outgrow it. And so you kind of prepared me as God was going to send you to do something, and I'd have been content being a youth pastor with 75 kids and going to midwinter youth retreats and doing, but you put that in my mind and my spirit, you're going to outgrow this ministry. Well, I couldn't see it then. I don't know if I ever outgrew it. I just was sent to do something else. But, it was in one way, it was an encouragement. In another way, it was kind of scary too. But I think that's a key word. Make sure it's a God sent, not just exiting for and exit well. And yeah. And if you've outgrown something, don't be afraid to step out by faith and see what God's pushing you into. But do it well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, if you're a secondary leader watching this, you would say, if your pastor just knows that you're not going anywhere unless you hear the voice of God, it makes it so much easier. It gives them one less thing to worry about, because trust me, whether they will admit it or not, every time that you appoint someone to a new position or you put a responsibility on someone, there's that thought process in the back of your mind. Is like, okay, what would be the chain reaction if they were to leave? Or if we put this weight on them and we can't count on them to be here, what's going to happen next? So for them just to have that assurance that unless I've heard from God, and maybe this is an actual conversation you need to have with them sometime in the next couple of weeks, where you just sit down and say, hey, I just want you to know, I love you. I support your vision. I believe what you're doing. And me and my family, we're totally bought in, and we're not going anywhere unless we hear an audible voice from heaven. Like that would give them relief, but it also, you would probably see your own ministry opportunities increasing, because those kind of people tend to get more opportunities placed on them because there's a lot more trust there. All right, and so just kind of moving on a little bit now. So we talked a little bit about the people who transition out the wrong way, how not to be them. But the inverse is true as well. Is how do we become that Timothy or that Mark, that person that Paul says, okay, everyone else left me, but I'm not going anywhere. So here's a few more things you can do to kind of become a Timothy or a Mark that really upholds and uplifts your leader. Is to remember, this is so important, that it's not only what you say, but also what you allow to be said in your presence that dictates your level of loyalty. So it might not be what, you might not be the one running the preacher down, or you might not be the one criticizing the sermon or the leadership style or the decision he made. But if you are a safe place where other people can come in and voice their concern, because they don't ever gossip, they're just voicing their concerns about the direction of the church or what it might be. If you are a safe place for that and people know they can talk to you about that, then you're actually part of the problem, whether you realize it or not. And would you say that to be true in your experience?
Yes. For sure.
Yes, across the panel.
Absolutely.
Well, it's just, and people that, come to you just, I've heard this, I've heard that. And, my first thought is how are they so comfortable to tell you that?
Right.
So I immediately, that's why my 2 words are fiercely loyal, because we got to work for the kingdom. We got souls to save and our community to win. And we don't have time, none of our life groups are entitled gossip. We don't have a gossip life group. If people are comfortable enough to tell you that, and you come to me and tell me that, that means you didn't shut it down, or, so.
What I love about these webinars, I'm sorry to cut you off. What I love about the webinars is that we're really not that focused on just providing mind-blowing content that you're going to like, I've never heard this before. We really want to tell you things that your pastor would tell you if he or she felt comfortable to do it.
See, I could hear criticism from 2 different kinds of people, right? Somebody can come with the report of things that are true about the health of the church, about some situation, and they could be telling me everything, and it's a fact sheet that's correct. And I don't want to hear it from them, because they're not the kind of person. But Julie will tell you that some of my closest colleagues in this church are some brutal talkers. I mean, when you get in the room, it's slice and dice, and nobody's feelings are guarded. It's just like, whoa, just throw it on the table. And we talk about really hard stuff, and including my weaknesses and my inefficiencies, But those kind of people have already demonstrated this loyalty that
Yeah.
it's a
Right.
safe place. I know they're on the team. At the end of the day, they're going to draw their sword and walk out on the battlefield with you. So they have a right. They've earned a place to to be a part, and they won't say more than I welcome, right? So if I shut it down, they're probably not going to say it because they're too nice. But if I'll crack the door and be humble myself, I'm going to hear the good things I need to hear from people that love me and are loyal.
Yes. And that's huge. That's really huge.
Yeah.
And I would say too that, that's where there's a difference between critique and criticism as well. Like criticism is never okay. Like just pointing out the negative, pointing out all the things that went wrong. That's never good. But critique can be healthy and good if your pastor has opened up that window for like, hey, I trust you to help us. Obviously, in every area of my leadership in my life, I have people that I trust that can help me to honestly assess where we truly are and how we can be better. But you got to be invited into that circle of trust. And if you start offering before you're invited in, you will never be invited in. And so it's really about timing and earning that. But I love that. And here's the other thing is that this has probably never happened to you guys, but sometimes I can be truly wrong. Like I could really have handled a situation.
Never happened.
No, you've
I
lost
just
us again. You've lost us.
I could have completely misspoke, where and said something just very harsh or mean-spirited. Like there's been times where I've failed, but the leaders that I really love and the kind of support system the kind of supporter that I want to be is like, yeah, I saw a weakness, but I don't hold it against you. I don't, I'm not, I see your weakness, but I still support you. I still love you. Like the story of Noah, you back up and you cover up the nakedness. You see the flaw in a leader. Because here's the thing, if you can't handle that, then the leader's going to hide who he or she really is from you. And you'll never be able to advance much in the organization because okay, if you're not going to be able to handle me for who I really am, then there'll be a very real limit on how close you can get. So if you want to be close, then you have to learn to support a leader in spite of weaknesses.
Right. I think the spouses feel it too. I'd like to hear from them, like when somebody's disloyal to their husband, or maybe they have their radar goes up about a person and their husband doesn't see it, stuff like that. What do you think, Sarada? Did I throw it at you too quick?
No. I was just taking notes in between. And like one of the things I write down, for me, like the moment you listen, a person in church and they listen to other person bringing complaints to them, you're causing division and disloyalty. So sometimes they may think a person who's serving in church, you may think, they are just just listening to that person, but you actually, if you don't stand for your pastor and show that we are one team, you cause division. So they would always come and look for you because you are their listener, and little that they know, and you're crossing the line and you're separating what your pastor stands for and what you stand as an individual. You should always be in one place.
Right.
I mean, Julie has had, suspicions about people that I'll open up to, and she'll sense they're somebody to worry about, and because she's seen it, the cycle happen, So I value her view of it, as well.
And I think it's important that like a spouse, doesn't hold back from a pastor for their husband to say, I don't know if you should trust that person that far or be that vulnerable to so and so. I because I feel things in my spirit, and I say that with a lot of trepidation because I always want to make sure that the Lord is is prompting me for that. I don't distrust everybody at all. I mean, you know, that would be easy sometimes for lead pastors to do and their wives, just to distance themselves from people and not trust. And I don't do that, but I've learned that you have to be cautious and you have to be wise. And then you want to look at that in your secondary leaders as well. Are they cautious with what they say? Are they wise with what they say? Are they paying attention to who's around when they are saying something or reacting to something that's been said?
So how would you say to the students that are on here, like how to position themselves to a pastor, you know, on a team, and give the pastor and his wife that kind of comfort that they're...
I think a lot of things that have been mentioned, the loyalties, what Sarada just was talking about, if somebody's, you know, coming to you, that you stop different things that are being said, and even direct the person. I think sometimes that person needs to be directed to the pastor. If you've got that in your heart, if somebody comes to you and you're wanting to say something, you say, this is not a conversation for us. That's between you and pastor, or you and, you know, the Lord. You need to go pray about that and see what the Lord tells you, if he gives you permission to take that to pastor. I think that's a good way to stand behind and not let that go any further, not let that sink into your spirit. I think it's hard to hear those things as a secondary leader and then not start making judgments on the upper level leaderships or your pastor. It's hard to hear that stuff and then say, now I've got to go overcome and cleanse my mind and my heart of these things that this person, these seeds that people put in my heart against the pastor or whatever their concerns might be. You know, just, you've got to, now they've got to, as you as a secondary leader have got to overcome that and not let that ferment in your heart, not let that, you know, seed start growing. So just to be loyal in that way of stopping conversations. I think it's hard to speak against somebody when you're praying for someone.
Wow, so good.
I think if you're praying for somebody and you are asking God to direct them and you're asking God to knit your hearts together and things like that, it's hard to speak against someone.
Right.
Amen.
Amen.
That's right.
I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that your words match up your heart and your action, because there are a lot of leaders, second-chair leaders, they would say exactly like what you want them to say, and they will do something else. And for me, it's deceiving, because the intention should always be to carry out what the pastor and the leadership wants, not what they want for their own.
It's good.
Right.
Hey, great. Well, look, we have a couple of we're about 5 minutes out. We have a couple questions that have came in, and so we have a lot more content we could have covered. But I think we get the big picture. Don't be one of the many that leave the leader feeling abandoned, but be a Timothy or Mark instead. One thing we did not get around to is how Paul requested and could count on them to bring him both his books and his cloak. So there is some real value in being a person who adds like physical comfort, you know, to your leaders, whether that's through offering them a date night so that they can, watch their kids so they can go on a date, or insisting that they take a moment of rest, or even this, like, hey, I see you're supposed to have this meeting tonight, but I think I've got a good grasp on it. Why don't you stay home and the team can handle that? Because a lot of times the leader will do things because he feels like he has to. And if you just give him he or she a little bit of permission to say, look, I think we have this covered, you stay home. All those things are things that really help support leadership. But hey, I want to toss a couple questions out at you. And if any of the other students that are watching, if you have questions, we'll just try to get to as many as we can. But here's a good one. What about a pastor? When as a pastor have you got a sense that a change was coming? Because I think sometimes what happens is that in a time of exit or transition, that everyone's feeling it. So the person's feeling it, but the pastor's often feeling it too. So has God ever used you, or do you think that God usually, when the change is right, that he's not just speaking to the person who might be exiting, but he might be speaking to the pastor as well?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Paul, you want to unpack that a little bit?
I've had to tell, it's been painful. It is painful to raise up a son in the gospel, for instance, take them from a place of inexperience to experience, take them from a place of, when their value was a lot of potential and a little bit of substance, and turn them into somebody that's or not turn them, but, watch them or walk alongside them as they became something very valuable, and then know that they're not supposed to be with you anymore. Right. And sometimes that's not just a pastoral assistant. Sometimes that's just a person in the church who their opportunity is somewhere else. They've got a job opportunity, they've got a career, they've got education, they've got an opportunity that, I'm not going to stand in the way of if I feel like that it's a God thing. And so, yeah, I can feel change coming, sometimes can't define it, but I kind of know I'm going to be having a conversation before long, or they're going to be having one.
Right.
And you just know it.
Jacob said that the countenance of his father-in-law changed. Laban's countenance changed towards him.
Wow.
And a lot of times that didn't just mean his face. There's a lot of times you can see the countenance start to change, and you know that something's around the corner. So yeah, I've often worked off that scripture and watched people's countenance, their body, their actions, their attendance, whatever. If their countenance is changing towards you, then brace yourself.
Yeah. Well, that can be a negative thing, and it can be a positive thing.
Yeah, right.
It can be that you can just tell that the time has changed. I mean, they've lost. Go ahead, Tammy.
I was going to say that I think we've learned in our time of pastoring that you cannot take everything personal. Every time someone exits your church as a leader, you take it so personal. What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? And we have learned just from being here that a lot of times people leave because of other situations in your church, and you take it so personal, thinking that it was something you did or something you could have prevented. And really, in all seriousness, you couldn't have done anything to change that situation. They may be upset with someone that sits across the church and they can't get along, can't see each other. And here we're taking it like, oh, it was something we did or something. So I think that, we've learned just to, if we know in our heart we haven't done anything wrong and we tried to fix the situation, you just have to kind of hold your head up and say, God had a plan, and we accept that to be that. And so,
especially in a small town,
yeah.
Especially in a small town, you've got that many people coming from your town. There's probably past history you don't even know about.
Right.
And then you're taking it personal, and it has nothing to do with you.
And sometimes that's the same case with leaders in the church too. There's things that go on that we don't know that happen, and you just have to, if you've tried to correct it every way you can, you just have to know that God, and almost inevitably, I could tell you this, every time someone has exited our church, God sends us someone else to fill that spot. And it's usually a great thing. And so we just try to, we kind of laugh and say, God's got something else that's coming. And that's the way we look at it. And it's helped us because we have spent a lot of anguish, like, what did we do wrong, or how could we have fixed this? So I don't know if that helps anybody, but it helped us, I think.
Yeah.
I think that one thing we learned a long time ago is that when people exit, we let them go graciously if at all possible, because we don't know what lies ahead. We don't know what road, God's going to lead everyone's path. I guess you could jokingly say these people, their kid might be your daughter-in-law someday or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But our circles circle back around to people, and God leads people back in and out, weaves people in and out of our lives, and you never know where that person would be. So with everything within us that we try to do is we try to allow exits to be gracious on our end, and just say, you're welcome to come back anytime. God God's leading you here, and we accept that, and we're happy for you. I mean, there's no reason to pile on a load of guilt and a load of, anguish on somebody's heart. You can feel terrible, and they don't ever want to see you again. And I mean, you're probably going to see them at weddings and funerals and conferences or whatever the case may be.
Grocery stores.
Grocery stores.
So it makes your heart feel better. I feel better when we can exit that way, when we can let people exit that way and just give them a blessing, send them off with a blessing.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just add, the aim of tonight was really to help them know how they can support their pastor through this transition. But I think the direction we're going is that the more involved you get in leadership at your church, the more you're personally going to feel this, because it's going to become personal to you, because you're bought into the vision.
Right.
You're giving your life for the vision. You're all in, and then not everyone will be into that same extent. And those of us who have been in vocational ministry for some years, it becomes part of our. It doesn't ever get easy, but it becomes like we just know what's going to happen, and it's part of it. But for younger leaders, this is going to be a very difficult situation you're going to face. You're going to have a friend in the church who needs to leave, and maybe they're hurt, or maybe their feelings are hurt, or whatever it is. And you're going to have to decide, am I still loyal to the vision of the house and to my pastor, or am I going to listen and get caught up in their offense?
Right.
So you personally learning to deal with, like, people on your team are going to leave. And so I just think that's a really important thing that we've done here. And I appreciate you guys. I think you've helped a lot of people tonight, and to know that, though we can't, God doesn't give us people to have forever. He sends some for seasons. Sometimes they hear God, sometimes they miss God. Our job is to love and to build on those who stay, and then to release those who go, because the truth is that, man, I shouldn't even say this out loud, but we're about to be done, and so I can always cut this out of the recorded version. But there's been people leave before that I would say, if that kind of person with that sort of character and attitude and characteristics, if they were comfortable under my leadership, then I'm probably not doing something right, And so actually by them making it a departure, it's a reaffirmation that maybe I am on the right path. Because
one way to look at it, that's for sure.
If they're comfortable here, then I'm probably not portraying as much love and grace and acceptance and joy that I want to. Like, there are some people that you don't want to be too comfortable in your ministry. I don't want mean, angry people very comfortable.
Right. I think you have to decide in advance, Landon, and for the team, the people that are watching. I mean, you have to decide in advance what kind of person you're going to be when people leave you, because it's going to happen, and it's going to constantly happen. There's a constant cycle of change going on with people. People are immature. They don't always do the right thing, and it's the rare person who does everything the way that you'd like it to be done. So you have to decide in advance what your attitude about it, and then to be the kind of leader that really makes the primary leader feel so comfortable and trusted. Paul could vent on Timothy. He knew it wasn't going to go any further. It was cool. He wrote him a letter that was pretty raw, and probably didn't say that to a lot of folks. Be that kind of leader. Be that kind of support to your pastor.
Yes, and love the leaders that are there. Don't build walls up and keep them at bay and make them feel the consequences of what the hurt you're going through. Learn to love again, and don't build those walls, and love those people that are there supporting you every Sunday, every week.
Perfect. Hey, thank you guys so much for joining us. Love you all all the students that are watching. Appreciate you so much for your time. We'll have this in a recorded version. If you happen to miss parts of it, you can always go back and watch it at a later time. But thank you. Keep working hard. You'll hear from us soon about more instructions for your coursework kicking off this semester. Paul, Julie, Russ, Tammy, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys have been amazing tonight. Been a big blessing. Thank you for the bravery to say things that not everyone will say, because these are the things that we need to hear, and so we're grateful for you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.